Eleanor Richardson sits alone in her study, holding a stack of forged documents that would have stripped her of everything she'd built over the past 40 years. Her hands don't shake as she places them back in the hidden compartment of her antique desk. The same desk where her son Timothy used to do his homework, where she taught him about responsibility and trust. Now, at 72, she's discovered his betrayal, an elaborate scheme to seize control of her $50 million estate. But Eleanor didn't build an empire by being predictable. She's prepared something that will shatter Timothy's carefully constructed plan. What would you do if the child you raised was secretly plotting to destroy everything you've built? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The yellowed business license from 1975 still hangs in Eleanor's office, framed beside her first real estate commission check for $2,142. Some might call it sentimental. She calls it a reminder. Every morning for 47 years, she's looked at that license while sipping her first cup of coffee, remembering the young widow who dared to dream bigger than anyone thought she should. Back then, they said a woman couldn't make it in commercial real estate, especially not with a 3-year-old son in tow. Eleanor had smiled politely at their doubts, just as she'd smiled when the bank manager suggested she bring a male relative to co-sign her first business loan. She'd walked out of that bank and into another and another until she found someone who saw what she saw: potential. That first year, she worked from a desk in her bedroom, making calls during Timothy's naps, showing properties with him strapped to her chest in a baby carrier. Other agents laughed behind their hands at the widow with the toddler, but Eleanor knew something they didn't. Desperation makes for one hell of a motivator. Her first real break came from an elderly client, Mrs. Chen, who needed to sell her late husband's warehouse quickly. While other agents saw a dilapidated building in a forgotten part of town, Eleanor recognized the early signs of gentrification in the surrounding blocks. She borrowed against her house, scraped together every penny she had, and made an offer herself. 6 months later, she sold that warehouse for triple her investment. "The key, Timothy," she told her son as they stood watching the demolition crew prepare the site for its new owners, "is to see what others can't, or won't." He'd nodded solemnly, though at 4 years old, his main interest had been the big machines tearing down the walls. That warehouse deal became her blueprint. Eleanor developed an uncanny ability to spot properties ripe for transformation, coupled with the patience to wait for the right moment to sell. She worked 18-hour days, building a network of investors who learned to trust her instincts implicitly. Timothy spent his after-school hours doing homework in the offices of architects, contractors, and lawyers, the pillars of her growing empire. By the time Timothy started high school, Eleanor Richardson Properties had become a force in the city's real estate market. She'd diversified into development, property management, and commercial leasing. Her portfolio included everything from luxury condominiums to industrial parks, each acquisition carefully chosen, each project meticulously planned. Success brought with it a different kind of challenge, ensuring Timothy understood the value of work. Eleanor had grown up watching her own father run a small grocery store, learning the importance of every penny earned. But Timothy was born into comfort, and comfort, she knew, could be dangerous. Nothing worth having comes easily, she'd tell him, making him work summer jobs at their construction sites, learning the business from the ground up. She paid him the same wage as any other worker, deaf to his complaints about friends whose parents bought them cars and funded lavish vacations. "You'll thank me one day," she'd said, though the sullen teenager had doubted it. Looking at that old business license now, Eleanor allows herself a moment of reflection. The empire she built from nothing now employs over 300 people. Her decisions affect thousands more: tenants, contractors, suppliers. It's a responsibility she has never taken lightly, even as others suggested she slow down, enjoy her success, let younger minds take the reins. Younger minds like Timothy's. Her son, who grew up watching her build something extraordinary, who learned every aspect of the business at her insistence, who now seeks to take it all through betrayal rather than earn it through merit. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so heartbreaking. Eleanor's fingers trace the edge of her desk, solid mahogany, a gift to herself after her first $1 million deal. In its hidden compartment lie the documents that reveal the full scope of Timothy's plan. She's raised him, taught him, prepared him to take over one day. But not like this. Never like this. The morning sun streams through her office windows, catching the gold lettering on that framed business license. Eleanor Richardson, real estate broker. Simple words that launched an empire. An empire she built from nothing but determination and grit. An empire she'll protect, even if it means breaking her own heart in the process. The leather-bound photo album sits heavy in Eleanor's lap, its pages worn from years of handling. The first photograph shows Timothy at age 6, grinning proudly, beside a toy dump truck in front of their first model home development. His father had died just 2 years earlier, but children are resilient. Sometimes Eleanor wonders if that early loss shaped him in ways she couldn't see then. She turns the pages slowly, watching Timothy grow through carefully preserved moments. Here he is at 8, wearing an oversized hard hat during a site inspection. At 10, dressed in his private school uniform, straight-backed and serious. At 12, receiving an award for mathematics, his smile beginning to show that hint of superiority that would later become his trademark. The private school had been a calculated decision. Eleanor wanted him to have advantages she never had, to move easily in circles that she'd had to fight her way into. But she sees now that each advantage came with its own hidden cost. Every achievement was expected rather than celebrated. Every luxury became a right rather than a privilege. Robert, her late husband, would have known how to balance it better. He'd had a way of tempering Eleanor's drive with warmth, of making success feel like a journey rather than a destination. "Remember to dance a little," he'd tell her when she worked late into the night. After his heart attack, the dancing stopped, and something in their home hardened almost imperceptibly. The photos track that change. Timothy's summer jobs on construction sites gave way to internships at prestigious firms. His childhood friends, the children of workers and contractors, were replaced by the sons and daughters of executives and old money. Eleanor had seen it as networking, as preparing him for the world he would inherit. Now she wonders if she was watching him learn to price everything and value nothing. There's a photo from his graduation day, mother and son standing before the ivy-covered walls of his private school. Eleanor's smile shows pride, but Timothy's reveals something else, a certainty, an entitlement. He'd finished top of his class, was headed to an elite university, had every door open before him. But his eyes held a calculation that should have worried her more. "You've given me the tools to succeed, Mother," he'd said that day, hugging her with careful affection. "I'll make you proud." The words were perfect, the tone precise, but something had felt rehearsed, as if he were performing the role of grateful son rather than living it. The last photo in the album shows them at the opening of Richardson Tower, their flagship development in the heart of downtown. Timothy stands tall in an expertly tailored suit, every inch the successful executive. Eleanor's hand rests on his shoulder, a gesture of maternal pride that now seems heavy with dramatic irony. They look like the perfect succession story, the pioneering mother ready to pass her legacy to her worthy son. Eleanor closes the album, letting her fingers linger on its worn cover. The photographs tell one story, but they don't show the late-night arguments about outdated business practices, the dismissive tone when she questioned his modernization proposals, the quiet accumulation of allies among board members who saw gray hair and assumed declining competence. They don't show the son who learned to smile for cameras while plotting behind them, the boy who watched his mother build an empire and decided that inheritance would take too long, the man who thought he could improve upon decades of success by simply taking what he wanted. Standing, Eleanor returns the album to its shelf among the other volumes that document their family history. Each book tells part of the story, but none reveal the truth she's finally facing. Sometimes love means protecting people from their worst impulses, even when those people are your own child. She straightens a frame on the wall, Timothy's business. School diploma, earned with the same determination she'd once used to build her first success. Like mother, like son, people often said. They never realized the comparison might not be the compliment they intended. The latest Richardson family portrait dominates the conference room wall, a masterpiece of careful staging. Eleanor studies it now, seeing beyond the perfect smiles and coordinated outfits to the fracture lines hidden beneath. Timothy stands beside her, one hand resting casually on his wife Victoria's shoulder, the other tucked into his bespoke suit pocket. The photographer had captured them at the height of apparent harmony, just 3 months ago, before Eleanor discovered the truth. Victoria had been an unexpected addition to their world 5 years earlier. A junior attorney at their corporate law firm, she'd caught Timothy's eye during a routine contract review. Eleanor had watched their whirlwind courtship with cautious optimism, hoping marriage might ground her son in something beyond ambition. "She's different, Mother," Timothy had insisted during their engagement. "She understands our world." Eleanor hadn't missed his emphasis on our, the casual claim of equal ownership over everything she'd built. But Victoria did seem to temper Timothy's sharper edges, bringing a genuine warmth to their formal family dinners. In the portrait, Victoria's smile holds a hint of uncertainty, as if she'd sensed even then that something wasn't quite right. Eleanor wonders how much her daughter-in-law knows about Timothy's schemes. The legal documents Eleanor discovered required expertise beyond Timothy's business acumen. Had Victoria helped craft them, or was she another piece in his elaborate chess game? The company's quarterly reports lay spread across the conference table before Eleanor, each page telling its own story of Timothy's recent innovations. On paper, everything looked impressive. Streamlined operations, aggressive expansion plans, modernized systems. He'd presented each change as necessary progress, dismissing her concerns as outdated thinking. "The market's changing, Mother," he'd say, his tone carefully patient. "We need to adapt." Then he'd launch into explanations heavy with industry jargon, speaking quickly enough to discourage questions. Eleanor had built her empire on instinct and careful observation. Timothy built his presentations on PowerPoint slides and consultant reports. But beneath the glossy surface of his proposals, Eleanor had spotted familiar patterns. Properties being undervalued for quick sales to shell companies. Board members being quietly replaced with Timothy's business school connections. Small changes to operating procedures that, taken together, shifted control away from her and toward a new corporate structure, one where her majority ownership could be legally challenged. The portrait catches the afternoon light, highlighting the silver in Eleanor's hair, the lines around her eyes. Time's march shows clearly on her face, unlike Timothy's smooth, confident features. She knows that's part of what emboldened him. The assumption that age had dulled her edge, that she'd be too tired or too trusting to notice his machinations. Victoria's weekly lunch invitations suddenly make more sense. Those concerned conversations about Eleanor working too hard take on a different meaning. Even the portrait itself, Timothy's insistence on hanging it in the conference room rather than the family room, feels calculated now. A visual reminder to clients and employees of the next generation's readiness to take control. Eleanor turns away from the portrait, focusing instead on her reflection in the conference room's windows. Beyond the glass, the city skyline stands as a testament to her decades of work. Each building, each development represents countless decisions, negotiations, and risks. She'd thought Timothy understood that legacy meant more than assets on a balance sheet. The door opens quietly, and Eleanor catches a glimpse of Timothy's reflection joining hers in the window. He moves with the easy confidence of someone who believes victory is inevitable. His smile, so perfect in the portrait, holds the same practiced warmth it always does. "Mother," he says, "the board members are arriving for the quarterly meeting. Shall we begin?" Eleanor turns, meeting his gaze with a smile of her own. Let him think her distracted by the portrait, by memories, by age. Let him believe his plan is proceeding undetected. After all, she'd taught him everything he knows about business, except perhaps her most important lesson. Never underestimate an opponent, especially one who changed your diapers. Of course, dear, she replies, gathering her papers. Let's see what the future holds. The anonymous letter arrived on a Tuesday, mixed in with routine correspondence. Plain white envelope, no return address, typed with meticulous precision. Eleanor holds it now, 3 weeks later, its crisp folds softened by frequent handling. Review the Marshall property transaction. It reads, follow the money. Simple words that cracked the foundation of her world. She'd almost dismissed it as a competitor's attempt at mischief. The Marshall deal had been Timothy's first solo project, a complex commercial development that he'd handled beautifully. At least that's what she'd thought until she began digging through the files. Margaret, I need you to be discreet about this, Eleanor had told her longtime attorney and friend during their late-night call. Margaret Chen, daughter of the warehouse owner who'd given Eleanor her first break 40 years ago, had inherited her mother's sharp mind and unflinching honesty. The subsidiary company that purchased the adjacent lots, Margaret said, her voice careful through the phone line. It traces back through 3 shell corporations to an offshore account. The signatures on the incorporation documents. Eleanor, they're dated 2 months before Timothy presented the deal to the board. Eleanor spreads the transaction records. Across her desk now, each page annotated in Margaret's precise handwriting. The scheme reveals itself in the details. Property values artificially depressed, assets moved through a maze of holding companies, all leading to a master plan that would have given Timothy controlling interest in the company's most valuable holdings. The Marshall deal wasn't just a success story, it was a dress rehearsal. Her computer chimed softly, signaling another email from the IT department. After the letter, Eleanor had authorized a quiet audit of all digital systems. The results paint a disturbing picture. Login credentials used during odd hours, sensitive files accessed and copied, emails forwarded to external accounts. We've tracked the unauthorized access, the IT director's report states. Multiple attempts originating from executive-level credentials, dating back approximately 8 months. The timeline corresponds perfectly with Timothy's push to modernize their systems, changes that had given him unprecedented access to the company's digital infrastructure. Eleanor minimizes the email as footsteps approach her office. Through the glass walls, she watches Timothy stop to charm Sarah, her longtime secretary. They laugh together, and Eleanor remembers hiring Sarah 30 years ago when Timothy was still in elementary school. How many of her loyal employees has he cultivated over the years, preparing for this moment? The letter trembles slightly in her hands, not from fear, but from an anger she hasn't allowed herself to fully acknowledge. This isn't just business. Betrayal. This is her son systematically undermining decades of relationships, exploiting trust she'd spent a lifetime building. Mrs. Richardson? Sarah's voice comes through the intercom. Your son would like a moment to discuss the Chen Holdings proposal. Ah, yes. The Chen Holdings deal. Another piece of Timothy's puzzle, no doubt. Eleanor had watched him court Margaret's largest client for months, never letting on that she'd discovered the true purpose behind his interest. The property's strategic location would give him leverage over several key development projects, if he controlled it. Send him in, Sarah, Eleanor responds, sliding the letter into her desk drawer. She arranges her features into the mild expression of maternal pride that Timothy has come to expect, the look that tells him his brilliance still blinds her. Timothy enters with his usual confidence, leather portfolio tucked under one arm. Mother, I've been reviewing the projections for Chen Holdings, and I think we're approaching it too conservatively. If we leverage our position. Eleanor listens, noting how skillfully he weaves his argument. He's learned well, perhaps too well, how to present risk as opportunity, how to make aggression sound like wisdom. She remembers teaching him these very techniques, never imagining he would turn them against her. An interesting perspective, she says when he finishes. Leave the proposals with me. I'll review them tonight. He hesitates fractionally, something flickering behind his eyes. Does he suspect? Has her performance slipped? But then he smiles, perfectly confident once more. Of course, Mother. Take all the time you need. After he leaves, Eleanor retrieves the anonymous letter. The paper stock, she'd realized, matches the letterhead from Victoria's personal stationery, an expensive grade she'd once commented on during a family dinner. Perhaps Timothy isn't the only one with secrets to keep. Eleanor reaches for her phone, dialing Margaret's private line. It's time to set her own pieces on the board. The forged power of attorney document feels wrong in Eleanor's hands, though at first glance it's nearly perfect. She spent the past hour comparing it to the genuine article in her safe, and the differences are subtle enough to fool most observers. But Eleanor Richardson didn't build an empire by being most observers. The paper stock is exceptional quality, Margaret says, adjusting her reading glasses. They're alone in Eleanor's home office, sharing a late-night bourbon while dissecting Timothy's handiwork. Custom watermark, aged to match our files. Even the letterhead's microprinting is nearly identical. This took serious resources and planning. Eleanor takes another sip of bourbon, letting its warmth steady her. He had help. Look at the legal language. It's too precise, too carefully crafted. This isn't just about taking control of the company. These clauses would give him authority over my personal assets, medical decisions, everything. Margaret spreads more documents across the antique desk. Bank transfers, shell company registrations, board member correspondence. Each piece reveals another layer of Timothy's scheme, like a poison ivy spreading its roots through her carefully tended garden. The scope is comprehensive, Margaret says, choosing her words carefully. He's been laying this groundwork for at least 18 months. The offshore accounts were established right after the Marshall Project. Then came the slow accumulation of shares through proxy buyers, the strategic hiring of key personnel, the gradual isolation of your most loyal board members. Eleanor picks up a stack of email printouts, her son's familiar signature line at the bottom of each message, casual conversations with board members, seemingly innocent questions about retirement plans, subtle hints about Eleanor's growing forgetfulness, a campaign of whispers designed to create doubt about her competence. What's interesting, Margaret continues, is the timing. These documents would only become active if you were declared mentally incompetent. He's been having private meetings with Dr. Harrison, your personal physician of 20 years. Care to guess what they discussed? The bourbon turns bitter in Eleanor's mouth. He was planning to have me declared unfit. Probably something gradual, dignified. Memory issues, perhaps. Early dementia. The concerned son reluctantly stepping in to protect his mother's legacy. And the company, Margaret adds. The timing of these transfers, she taps another document, suggests he's overextended. He's leveraged personal assets against some significant loans. If he doesn't gain control of the company's resources soon, he'll lose everything, Eleanor finishes. The irony doesn't escape her. Timothy's attempt to seize her fortune stems from his desperation to protect his own. Like father, like son, Robert had harbored a gambling problem that only Eleanor knew about. She'd protected Timothy from that knowledge, paid off Robert's debts quietly. Perhaps that had been a mistake. A notification pops up on Eleanor's laptop. The private investigator's latest report. James Morris had been skeptical when she hired him. Family matters get messy, Mrs. Richardson. But his work is impeccable. The surveillance photos show Timothy meeting with various board members, doctors, lawyers. In each image, he projects confidence, authority. The perfect corporate air apparent. He's scheduled a special board meeting for next month. Margaret notes, checking her phone. The agenda items are vague, but given these documents, I'd say that's his moment. Present evidence of your decline. Push for emergency measures. Execute the power of attorney before anyone can question it. Eleanor stands, moving to the window. The city lights spread before her, a glittering testament to decades of careful building. She remembers holding infant Timothy here, whispering promises about his future. Every decision since then, the private, schools, the elite universities, the accelerated career track, had been aimed at preparing him for leadership. We have 4 weeks, she says finally, turning back to Margaret. Time to remind my son that he's not the only one who knows how to plan ahead. Margaret gathers the documents, her expression grave. What do you want to do? Eleanor picks up the forged power of attorney. running her fingers over its perfect imperfections. Timothy wants to play chess. Fine. But he's forgotten who taught him the game. Have the foundation paperwork ready by morning. And Margaret? Call Victoria's office. Request a private meeting. Just the two of us. Let's see where my daughter-in-law's loyalties really lie. As Margaret leaves, Eleanor returns to the window. Somewhere out there, Timothy is probably celebrating his imminent victory, unaware that his carefully constructed plan is about to encounter its fatal flaw. He learned all his moves from the very opponent he's trying to defeat. Eleanor's little black book lies open on her desk, its pages filled with 4 decades of carefully cultivated relationships. Each entry represents more than just a contact. It's a story, a shared history, a potential ally in the coming storm. She's spent her career understanding that real power lies not in what you know, but in who you can trust. James Morris is already in position, Margaret reports, settling into her usual chair. The private investigator had been their first call, his discreet surveillance providing crucial intelligence. He's confirmed Timothy's meeting schedule for the next 2 weeks. Every major board member, plus 3 separate consultations with Dr. Harrison. Eleanor makes a note in the margin of her book. And Victoria? Accepted your lunch invitation for tomorrow. Private dining room at LeBlanc, as requested. Margaret pauses, adjusting her glasses. She seemed nervous when I called. More than professional courtesy would warrant. Good. Eleanor turns a page, running her finger down a list of names. What about Judge Carlton? Still owns that property in Palm Springs you helped him acquire during the recession. He'll be discreet about the foundation's incorporation papers. No. Questions asked. Fast-tracked approval. The foundation, Eleanor's masterstroke. While Timothy plots to seize her empire through legal manipulation, she's preparing to give it away on her own terms. The irony would be delicious if it weren't so heartbreaking. A soft knock interrupts their planning. Sarah enters, carrying a leather portfolio. After 30 years as Eleanor's executive assistant, she's more family than employee. The trust documents. You requested, Mrs. Richardson, and Mr. Chen called. He's moved his flight to arrive tomorrow morning. Eleanor nods, adding another note to her book. Philip Chen, Margaret's brother and one of Asia's top financial restructuring experts, understands the delicate art of moving assets without attracting attention. His help will be crucial in the weeks ahead. Sarah, Eleanor says carefully, you should know. Things are about to change significantly around here. Sarah straightens, her loyalty evident in her posture. I assumed as much when you asked me to pull Timothy's original employment contract. Would you like me to start documenting his recent irregularities? A small smile touches Eleanor's lips. Timothy had dismissed Sarah as just another aging assistant, forgetting that she's been copying every memo, filing every report, and observing every meeting for 3 decades. Actually, Eleanor replies, I'd like you to make a few mistakes. Nothing obvious, just some misplaced files, misdirected emails. Let's see how Timothy reacts when he thinks he's found new ammunition for his competency challenge. Margaret raises an eyebrow. Laying breadcrumbs? Timothy expects me to fight directly for control. He'll be looking for signs of weakness, gathering evidence. Let's give him exactly what he expects to find. Eleanor turns another page in her book, revealing a section labeled Board Members. Next to each name, she's noted their vulnerabilities, their ambitions, their prices. Some will stand with Timothy, believing his promises of modernization and growth. Others will waver, waiting to see which Richardson emerges victorious. Douglas Hayes called again, Sarah adds. He's concerned about the Chen Holdings vote. Of course he is, Eleanor murmurs. Hayes, her longest-serving board member, had been deliberately excluded from Timothy's inner circle. Another mistake. Hayes might be old school, but his network in the banking community remains unmatched. The pieces are falling into place. Eleanor closes her book, its pages heavy with decades of relationships, favors owed, promises kept. Timothy has his PowerPoints and proxy documents, his offshore accounts and forged papers. But Eleanor has something far more valuable, A lifetime of proving that her word is her bond. Margaret, draft the foundation charter tonight. Sarah, move. My meeting's tomorrow to accommodate Philip's arrival. And let's invite Hayes to join us for dinner, somewhere public, somewhere Timothy's people will notice. As her inner circle disperses to their tasks, Eleanor remains at her desk, fingers tracing the worn cover of her little black book. Inside its pages lie the names of people who've watched her build something from nothing, who've shared in her successes and stood by her through setbacks. People who understand that legacy isn't measured in dollars and cents, but in the lives you touch and the trust you earn. Timothy wants her empire? Fine. But first, she'll teach him its true worth and the cost of betraying it. The foundation. Charter document gleams with fresh ink, its gold-embossed letterhead catching the morning light. The Richardson Legacy Foundation, Eleanor reads aloud, savoring each word. The name itself is a masterpiece of misdirection. Timothy will assume it's another testament to family pride, never suspecting it's actually the instrument of his undoing. Philip. Chen leans forward in his chair, his precise manner reflecting years of handling delicate financial restructuring. The framework is elegant in its simplicity, he says, tapping the document. A charitable foundation dedicated to urban development and economic opportunity. The press will love the symbolism, the self-made woman giving back to the community that supported her rise. And the transfer mechanisms? Eleanor asks, though she already knows the answer. She's spent the past week reviewing every detail with Philip and Margaret, ensuring the plan is ironclad. Unassailable, Philip confirms. The foundation will receive controlling interest in key properties through a series of structured donations. By the time Timothy realizes what's happening, the assets he's trying to seize will be legally bound to charitable purposes. Eleanor signs her name with deliberate strokes, each letter a step toward securing her legacy, not just of wealth, but of values. Behind her, through the office windows, cranes pierce the skyline, marking ongoing Richardson projects. Soon, they'll serve a different mission. The board structure is particularly inspired, Margaret adds, sliding forward another document. By appointing community leaders and development experts alongside financial trustees, we've created a firewall against any future attempts at corporate takeover. Eleanor allows herself a small smile. Timothy's expectations will blind him to the elegance of her strategy. He'll be looking for traditional defensive moves, legal challenges, boardroom politics, perhaps an attempt to rally shareholders. Instead, she's changing the game entirely. The initial endowment paperwork is ready, Philip continues. We've structured it to begin with smaller properties, nothing that would raise immediate alarms. The major transfers won't activate until the trigger event. The trigger event. Their euphemism for the moment Timothy attempts to execute his power, of attorney gambit. When he moves to seize control, he'll find himself grasping at shadows. Sarah enters with fresh coffee, placing a cup at Eleanor's elbow with practiced ease. Dr. Harrison's office called again, she reports. They're quite insistent about scheduling your cognitive evaluation. Let them stew, Eleanor replies, signing another page of the charter. A worried son's concerns about his mother's mental state carry more weight if she's being difficult about medical appointments. Margaret's phone buzzes, a text from her sources inside Timothy's legal team. They're preparing the competency challenge documents, she reports, targeting the next board meeting, just as we suspected. Eleanor nods, turning to the foundation's mission statement. The words flow from her pen with quiet certainty. To transform urban spaces into communities of opportunity, continuing the Richardson legacy of building not just properties, but possibilities. The press release is ready, Sarah adds. Embargoed. Until your signal, but the major outlets are already interested. A billionaire developer launching a major charitable initiative? They'll run with it for days. And the timing? Philip asks, ever precise. Eleanor caps her pen, looking at the Manhattan skyline she helped shape. We'll announce the foundation's creation the morning after Timothy makes his move. Let him spend weeks gathering evidence of my supposed decline, plotting with board members, preparing his legal coup. The bigger he builds his case, the more dramatic its collapse will be. She turns back to her trusted circle. When he finally strikes, expecting to seize control of a real estate empire, he'll discover I've transformed it into something he can't touch. Every property he's targeted, every asset he's coveted, all legally committed to charitable purposes, overseen by an independent board. Margaret allows herself a rare smile. The concerned son, forced to publicly challenge his philanthropist mother's mental competency for giving away her fortune to help others? The press will crucify him. And if he persists, Philip adds, he'll only prove that his motivation was greed all along. Either way, his credibility is finished. Eleanor gathers the signed documents, each page representing another piece of her counter-strategy. The foundation isn't just a defensive move, it's the culmination of everything she's learned about power, legacy, and true wealth. Timothy wanted my empire, she says quietly. He never understood that real power isn't in possessing something, but in knowing when and how to let it go. She places the charter in her wall safe, alongside the evidence of Timothy's betrayal. Let him plot and scheme, thinking he's the master strategist. Eleanor has spent a lifetime building things meant to last, and now she's building her masterpiece. The security footage plays silently on Eleanor's laptop, its black and white clarity capturing Timothy's late-night meeting in the company parking garage. James Morris had installed the additional cameras weeks ago, their presence unknown to anyone but Eleanor's inner circle. Now they reveal her son's growing desperation. Timothy paces as he talks to a man Eleanor recognizes as Dr. Harrison's practice partner. Their body language speaks volumes. Timothy's aggressive gestures, the doctor's uncertain posture. No audio needed. She can read the story in their movements. When money changes hands, Eleanor feels a familiar ache in her chest. Not surprise, not anymore. Just grief for what her son has become. The timestamp shows 11:42 p.m. last night, James notes, forwarding through similar clips. He had 4 other meetings this week, 2 board members, his private banker, and someone. Margaret's identified as a specialist in geriatric psychiatry. Eleanor watches Timothy check his surroundings repeatedly, unaware he's already being observed. He's getting sloppy, she remarks. Meeting in the company garage, barely attempting to hide the payoffs. That's not like him. Pressure makes people careless, James replies, switching to footage from the office corridors. Your performance has him rattled. Those memory lapses Sarah's been staging? He's recording everyone, building his case. But he's also checking his watch constantly, taking calls in stairwells. Classic signs of someone running out of time. The next clip shows Victoria entering Timothy's office, her usually perfect posture tight with tension. The timestamp matches. Eleanor's lunch meeting with her daughter-in-law yesterday, immediately after, in fact. The conversation plays again in Eleanor's mind. I know everything, Victoria, she had said quietly, watching the younger woman's hands tremble around her water glass. The question is, how much do you know? Victoria's carefully constructed facade had cracked, just slightly. Timothy says it's for the best, that you're struggling with decisions, that the company needs stronger leadership. And the offshore accounts, the forged documents, the bought medical opinions, are those for the best too? The security footage shows Victoria leaving Timothy's office 40 minutes later, wiping her eyes. Eleanor makes a note to have James track her movements more closely. A cornered spouse can be either an ally or a liability. There's more, James says, pulling up another file. Timothy's been meeting with Lucas Wright. Eleanor's fingers tighten on her desk. Wright heads their largest competitor, a man known for hostile takeovers and asset stripping. When? 3 times in the past week. Very careful arrangements. Different restaurants each time. But my people got photos. James slides over a manila envelope. Wright's reputation. If Timothy's involving him, he needs backup funding. Eleanor finishes. His personal assets are leveraged to the hilt. If his play for control fails, he'll lose everything. So he's making deals with devils. The latest footage shows Timothy returning to his office at midnight, his confident stride betraying a slight stumble. Eleanor zooms in on his face, the perfect heir-apparent mask slipping to reveal exhaustion. fear, and something darker. The son she raised would never have considered selling pieces of their company to Lucas Wright, but perhaps that son never really existed. Have Margaret expedite the foundation paperwork, Eleanor instructs, closing the laptop. Timothy's unraveling, faster than anticipated. We need everything in place before he makes a mistake we can't undo. James gathers his equipment, but pauses at the door. Mrs. Richardson, I've seen a lot of family disputes in my line of work. They usually end badly for everyone. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Eleanor turns to the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk approaches. Somewhere out there, her son is probably meeting with another co-conspirator, making another desperate deal, believing himself the master strategist. Just like his father before his final gambling binge, Timothy can't see that he's already lost. Timothy chose this path, she says finally. But I can choose how it ends. Sometimes love means stopping someone before they destroy themselves completely. After James leaves, Eleanor reviews the surveillance photos one last time. Each image shows her son's descent, the pressured meetings, the hasty payoffs, the growing paranoia. He's assembled his pieces, believing he's surrounded her, never realizing that every desperate move, every secret meeting, every panicked decision is exactly what she expected. The next move is his, and when he makes it, Eleanor will be ready. The gala invitation rests in Eleanor's hands, its cream-colored cardstock embossed with gold lettering. An evening of legacy, reads the elegant script, honoring 4 decades of Richardson excellence. She's reviewed the design a dozen times, each word carefully chosen to support the narrative she's crafting. The guest list is confirmed, Sarah reports, presenting the final count. 243 attendees, including all board members, major shareholders, and key industry figures. The Times business editor accepted, along with representatives from Forbes and Bloomberg. Eleanor traces the invitations raised. Lettering. Timothy will see it as the perfect stage for his takeover, a gathered audience of influence makers, a celebration of Richardson's success that could smoothly transition into an announcement of new leadership. He won't realize he's walking into theater of her design, Victoria called again. Sarah adds softly. She's asking about the seating arrangements, specifically who's at the main table. Tell her not to worry, Eleanor replies. She'll have a front row seat for everything. The hint of steel in her voice makes Sarah glance up sharply. In 30 years, she's rarely heard that tone from her employer. Margaret enters, carrying the latest surveillance reports. Timothy's confirmed his RSVP. He's also scheduled a private board meeting for the morning after. The agenda includes an emergency succession discussion. Perfect timing, Eleanor murmurs. He'll want to capitalize on any momentum from the gala. Has he booked Dr. Harrison? Better. Margaret allows herself a small smile. He's arranged for 3 separate psychiatric specialists to be present, all very prestigious names, all coincidentally attending as guests. Eleanor sets the invitation aside, turning to the seating chart spread across her desk. Each place card represents a carefully positioned player in the drama about to unfold. Timothy and Victoria at the main table, of course, flanked by board members whose loyalty he thinks he's secured. The medical experts scattered strategically throughout the room. Lucas Wright positioned just far enough away to avoid suspicion. The foundation paperwork, she asks. Judge Carlton signed off this morning. Everything's in place, waiting for your signal. Eleanor nods, reviewing her mental checklist. The past month has been an elaborate dance of preparation, each move calculated. To reinforce Timothy's confidence while laying the groundwork for his downfall. The gala will be his moment of triumph. Right until it isn't. The press release drafts are ready, Sarah adds. 3 versions, depending on how events unfold. The foundation announcement has already generated significant interest, even under embargo. And the video package? Margaret passes over a USB drive. Every crucial meeting, every suspicious transaction, every late-night encounter. Plus, full documentation of the offshore accounts and forged documents, ready to display on the ballroom screens at your command. Eleanor picks up the invitation again, studying the date and time. 1 week from tonight. The Richardson family's greatest public gathering, since she announced the groundbreaking of their flagship tower 15 years ago. Timothy had stood beside her then, beaming with genuine pride. Or perhaps even that had been rehearsal for this moment. Dr. Harrison called personally, Sarah mentions. He seemed nervous, wanted to confirm that you're still refusing the cognitive evaluation. Let him stew, Eleanor replies. His discomfort might make him sloppy. Timothy's other medical experts may notice, start asking questions. Doubt breeds doubt. She turns to the window, watching the sunset paint her city in shades of gold. The same view she'd shared with Timothy as a child, teaching him about legacy and responsibility. Now it will witness his greatest lesson, one she never wanted to deliver. Send the final invitations, she instructs. Make sure Timothy receives his last, hand-delivered. Let him think I'm too distracted to notice such details. As Sarah gathers the seating charts, Eleanor remains at the window. The invitation's words echo in her mind, an evening of legacy. Timothy believes it's about inheritance, about taking what he thinks he deserves. He never understood that true legacy isn't what you leave to people, but what you leave in them. One more thing, she adds quietly. Make sure there's a camera focused on Timothy throughout the evening. When everything's done, I want a record of the exact moment he realizes what's happening. Not for satisfaction, she clarifies, seeing Margaret's questioning look. For remembrance. Some lessons hurt the teacher more than the student. The invitation catches the dying sunlight, its gold lettering flashing like a warning. 1 week until Timothy learns the true meaning of legacy. 1 week until a mother's love manifests as necessary destruction. 1 week until Eleanor Richardson reminds everyone why she's survived 4 decades in a cutthroat industry. The stage is set. The players are positioned. Now comes the hardest part, waiting for her son to spring her trap. The email from Timothy appears on Eleanor's screen at 3:47 a.m. Its timestamp betraying his state of mind. The carefully crafted corporate language can't quite hide the desperation bleeding through every line. Mother, given recent concerns about the company's direction and your increasingly erratic decision-making, I've taken the liberty of scheduling consultations with several highly respected medical professionals. Your reluctance to address these issues leaves me no choice but to pursue more formal measures to protect both you and the Richardson legacy. I know you may not understand this now, but everything I'm doing is for the best interests of the family and the company. Your legacy deserves to be protected, even if you're no longer capable of seeing that clearly. We can handle this quietly at tomorrow's gala, or we can make it more difficult. The choice, as always, is yours. With concern, Timothy. Eleanor reads it twice, noting the calculated mix of threat and false concern. In another window, she pulls up James's latest surveillance report. Timothy hasn't slept in his own home for 3 nights, spending hours in his office instead. The cameras show him pacing, making calls, drinking more than usual. He's accelerating his timeline, Margaret observes, reading over Eleanor's shoulder. The stress is getting to him. Lucas Wright's deadline must be tighter than we thought. Eleanor minimizes the email, turning to the latest financial reports. Timothy's personal accounts are bleeding money. Massive transfers to offshore holdings. Desperate attempts to shore up his leveraged positions. He's betting everything on seizing control of the company before his house of cards collapses. Victoria's called 3 times this morning, Sarah adds from the doorway. She sounds different, scared maybe. Put her through next time, Eleanor instructs. The security feeds have shown Victoria making late-night visits to her own family's lawyer, emerging with thick folders. Self-preservation instincts kicking in, perhaps. Margaret's phone buzzes. Another update from her sources. Timothy's called an unofficial board meeting for this afternoon. Private location, select members only. He's making his final pitch before tomorrow night. Eleanor nods, turning to the wall of windows. The city stretches before her, decades of her work written in steel and glass. Somewhere out there, her son is gathering his conspirators, believing tomorrow night will mark his triumph. The thought brings no satisfaction, only a deep, familiar ache. The foundation paperwork? She asks. Complete. Judge Carlton's office confirmed final approval this morning. One signature from you activates everything. Eleanor's phone lights up with another email. This one from Dr. Harrison, practically begging for a meeting before the gala. His concern about cognitive irregularities sounds rehearsed, desperate. Timothy must be pushing him hard. Your dress for tomorrow arrived, Sarah mentions. The blue one you chose, it's quite a statement. Eleanor allows herself a small smile. The dress had been carefully selected. Elegant but sharp. Its color chosen to complement the Richardson Company logo that will dominate the ballroom screens. She'll look every inch the corporate queen, right until the moment she chooses to abdicate on her own terms. Has Timothy seen the final guest list? She asks. Margaret checks her notes. No, he's been working from the preliminary version. He doesn't know about Judge Carlton or the Times investigative reporter or the state attorney general's representative. Good. Eleanor turns back to Timothy's email, its words heavy with unintended irony. Protection, legacy, family. He's using them as weapons, never understanding their true weight. A notification pops up. Timothy's calendar secretly mirrored to Eleanor's system. He's scheduled meetings straight through until tomorrow night, each one a piece of his final preparation. Dr. Harrison at 4 p.m., Lucas Wright at 6. The board members he thinks are loyal, scattered through the evening. He'll be exhausted by the time he reaches the gala, Margaret observes. That's the point, Eleanor replies. Let him spend the next 24 hours orchestrating his triumph. Let him believe everything is falling into place. The more certain he becomes, the more complete his lesson will be. She closes Timothy's email without responding. Let him interpret her silence as confusion, as weakness, as yet another sign of declining capacity. Tomorrow night he'll learn that silence can be strategy too. Should we warn Victoria? Sarah asks softly. Give her a chance to distance herself? Eleanor considers the security footage of her daughter-in-law's recent activities, the lawyer visits, the late-night phone calls, the obvious distress. No, she made her choice when she helped him forge those documents. Sometimes the hardest lessons require the highest stakes. The sun sets behind the city skyline, painting tomorrow's battlefield in shadows. In 24 hours, everything Timothy thinks he knows about power, legacy, and family will be transformed. His email's final line echoes in Eleanor's mind. The choice, as always, is yours. He has no idea how right he is. The gala program lies precisely centered on each of the 243 place settings, its silver foil catching the crystal chandelier's light. An evening of legacy, celebrating the Richardson vision, spans the cover in elegant script. Inside, the carefully crafted schedule reads like a countdown to execution. PM. Welcome reception 7:45 p.m., seating for dinner 30 p.m., keynote address. Eleanor Richardson p.m., special announcements, and 30 p.m., entertainment and dancing. Eleanor stands at the ballroom's entrance, greeting guests with practiced warmth. Her midnight blue dress makes a statement of subtle power, its classic lines suggesting timeless authority rather than declining years. Every handshake, every smile, every gracious nod is performed with deliberate precision. Let Timothy's pet doctors watch for signs of confusion or fatigue. They'll find none. Dr. Harrison just arrived, Margaret murmurs, appearing at her elbow. He's looking rather pale, and he's not alone. Brought both partners from his practice. Third table from the left, Eleanor replies softly, never breaking her smile. Next to the Harvard neurologist Timothy flew in. Let them compare notes over dinner. The ballroom fills steadily, a carefully orchestrated mix of power and presentation. Board members cluster in their assigned spots, their forced joviality masking underlying tension. Financial press representatives circle the edges, sensors already tuned to the evening's unusual undercurrents. Lucas Wright's here, Sarah reports through Eleanor's discreet earpiece. Timothy's speaking with him now, west corner. Eleanor doesn't need to look. She can picture the scene. Her son, impeccably dressed, making last-minute assurances to the corporate raider who thinks he's found an easy mark. Wright's reputation for dismantling companies brick by brick has earned him the nickname, the Demolition Man. His presence tonight is yet another measure of Timothy's desperation. Victoria arrives alone, her designer gown unable to hide her obvious distress. She moves toward Timothy, but stops short, changing course to the bar instead. Eleanor notes the slight tremor in her hand as she lifts her champagne glass. Knowledge can be a terrible burden when you're not prepared for its weight. Judge Carlton just arrived, Margaret adds. Timothy definitely noticed. He's checking the guest list again? Good. Eleanor maintains her position at the entrance, watching the pieces assemble themselves. Every arrival adds another layer to the trap she's set. Witnesses, participants, and unknowing accomplices all playing their parts. The program's timeline flows seamlessly forward. At 7:45 precisely, the soft dinner chimes sound. Eleanor waits, letting Timothy step forward to guide her to their table. His hand on her elbow is firm, proprietary. To the watching crowd, it looks like filial concern. Only Eleanor feels the subtle pressure, the attempt at control. "You look tired, Mother," he says, just loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Perhaps we should keep your remarks brief tonight." Eleanor pats his hand, playing her role. "Don't worry, dear. I know exactly what needs to be said." Dinner proceeds according to plan. Eleanor watches Timothy work the room with careful precision. He moves between the medical experts, the board members, the strategic allies he's positioned. Throughout the crowd, each conversation reinforces the narrative he's crafted. The concerned son, the capable heir, the reluctant savior of the Richardson legacy. "The media's getting restless," Sarah whispers, refreshing Eleanor's water. "They know something's coming." The Times reporter is already drafting 2 different versions of tomorrow's story. Eleanor dabs her lips with her napkin, checking the time. 45 minutes until her keynote address. Around the room, her hidden allies are in position. Margaret conferring quietly with Judge Carlton. James's security team monitoring every entrance. The technical staff ready with their carefully prepared video presentations. Timothy returns to the main table, his confidence growing with each passing moment. He's switched to water, staying sharp for what he believes will be his moment of triumph. Eleanor catches Victoria watching him with a mixture of fear and resignation. She's seen that look before, in the mirror, decades ago, when she finally accepted the truth about Robert's gambling. "It's time, Mrs. Richardson," Sarah murmurs. "They're ready for you to begin." Eleanor rises, accepting Timothy's solicitous arm. The room quiets, anticipation building. Her son's smile is genuine now, tinged with something that might be pity. He thinks this is the end of her story, the graceful exit of a queen past her. Prime. The gala program sits untouched before her place setting, its silver foil still gleaming. Such an elegant countdown to catastrophe. Eleanor straightens her shoulders, moving toward the podium. Time to show her son that some legacies are forged in fire. Eleanor's handwritten speech notes rest on the podium before her, each page crisp and precise. No tremors in the elegant script, no signs of the declining faculties Timothy has so carefully documented. The first lines hold particular weight. Legacy isn't what we leave behind. It's what we choose to carry forward. The ballroom falls silent. As she begins, 243 faces turn toward her. Timothy sits at the center table, his expression a carefully crafted mask of filial pride. Only Eleanor notices his fingers drumming slightly against his water glass. His tell since childhood, betraying tension beneath the surface. 47 years ago, she begins, her voice clear and strong. "I stood before a bank manager who told me that women couldn't succeed in real estate development. That afternoon, I made 2 promises to myself. First, that I would prove him wrong. And second, that when I succeeded, I would ensure others wouldn't face the same barriers." She pauses, letting her gaze sweep the room. Dr. Harrison shifts uncomfortably, in his seat. The Harvard neurologist Timothy imported is frowning, clearly struggling to reconcile her commanding presence with the medical assessment he'd been paid to prepare. The Richardson name stands for more than profit margins and property values. It represents a vision of what our city can become when we invest in possibility rather than mere probability. Timothy's smile flickers slightly. This isn't the rambling reminiscence he expected, the softball set up for his intervention. Eleanor continues, each word precisely chosen. Some see legacy as something to be seized, to be taken. They mistake possession for purpose, control for contribution. Her eyes meet Timothy's briefly. They forget that true power lies not in what we grasp, but in what we're willing to release. Victoria's champagne glass trembles slightly. She knows what's coming, even if her husband doesn't. The surveillance photos had shown her leaving her family lawyer's office yesterday, divorce papers tucked carefully in her briefcase. Tonight marks a new chapter in the Richardson legacy, Eleanor continues, one that honors our past by transforming our future. She nods slightly to Sarah, who signals the technical team. The ballroom screens illuminate with the Richardson Company logo. For 47 years, I've built this company on a foundation of trust. Trust from our investors, our partners, our employees. Trust that every decision, every development, every deal would serve a greater purpose than mere profit. Timothy straightens in his chair, his expression sharpening. This isn't following his script. The doctors he's planted throughout the room are exchanging glances, their carefully prepared observations of mental decline becoming increasingly difficult to justify. Trust, Eleanor emphasizes, is earned through actions, not intentions, through sacrifice, not seizure, through building up, not tearing down. Her eyes find Lucas Wright, lurking at his assigned table. The corporate raider's predatory smile fades slightly. She lifts her speech notes, letting the light catch her steady hands. Some of you came tonight expecting a different kind of announcement. You've heard rumors, whispers, carefully planted suggestions about my capacity to lead. The room stills completely. Timothy's fingers freeze on his water glass. To those who doubted, who plotted, who thought age had dulled my edge, her voice carries to every corner. I say this. True vision sees beyond the obvious, beyond the grasping of power, beyond the betrayal of trust. Margaret slides a folder onto the podium, the foundation documents, ready for their moment. Eleanor continues, each word a carefully placed stone in the path to Timothy's enlightenment. Legacy isn't inherited. It's earned. It's not taken. It's given. And tonight, I'm announcing my decision to give the Richardson legacy its fullest, most meaningful expression. She straightens to her full height, power radiating from every line of her midnight blue dress. But before I share the details of this transformation, I have some evidence to present. Evidence of exactly why this change is not just necessary, but vital. Timothy half rises from his chair, finally sensing the trap. But it's too late. The screens shift, displaying the first of James's surveillance photos. Eleanor's voice carries over the rising murmur. Let me show you what true legacy looks like. And more importantly, what it doesn't look like. Her handwritten speech lies open before her, its final lines yet to be delivered. But Timothy's face shows he's already beginning to understand. Sometimes the most important lessons are written, not in ink, but in consequences. The cell phone videos spread across social media within hours, shaky footage capturing the exact moment Timothy Richardson's world implodes. But the professional camera feeds, synchronized from multiple angles, tell the fuller story. They show his face cycling through disbelief, rage, and finally, devastating comprehension as his mother continues her methodical destruction of everything he thought he knew. Perhaps we should begin with these documents. Eleanor's voice remains steady as the screens display the forged power of attorney. Notice the dates, the careful forgeries, the offshore accounts designed to strip this company of its assets. Timothy stands, his chair scraping against the marble floor. Mother, you're confused. This isn't... Confusion is believing you could outmaneuver the woman who taught you how to play the game. Eleanor's tone carries no anger, only disappointment. Dr. Harrison, since you're here, would you like to explain your role in the fabricated mental health evaluations, or shall we play the surveillance footage of your garage meetings first? The doctor slumps in his chair as the screens split, showing multiple angles of late-night conversations, envelopes changing hands. The Harvard specialist Timothy imported begins gathering his things, clearly wanting no part of what's unfolding. "This is ridiculous." Timothy's voice cracks slightly. "I was protecting the company." "From what, Timothy?" "From my decision to give it meaning beyond profit? From my choice to transform our legacy into something that can't be stolen or sold?" "Lucas." Wright stands, moving toward the exit, but Eleanor's next words freeze him mid-step. "Mr. Wright, leaving so soon? But we haven't discussed your role in the planned dismantling of Richardson properties. The deals you made, the properties you planned to strip once Timothy handed you control. Please, stay. The state attorney general's representative would love to hear your perspective." The room erupts in whispers. Board members edge away from Timothy's table as though distance might protect them from the fallout. Victoria remains seated, her face a mask of resigned recognition. "You've been investigating me?" Timothy's attempted accusation sounds hollow. "Spying on your own son?" "No, Timothy. I've been watching you become exactly what I raised you not to be." Eleanor gestures, and the screens fill with documents, bank transfers, offshore accounts, leveraged assets. "Your personal finances are a house of cards. Every move you've made in the past 18 months has been driven by desperation, not vision." He takes a step toward the podium, but Margaret and James appear smoothly at Eleanor's sides. The cameras capture his realization that even his mother's most trusted advisors have been part of her counter-strategy. "The Richardson Legacy Foundation," Eleanor continues, lifting the formal charter, "was incorporated last week. As of this morning, controlling interest in Richardson properties has been legally transferred to its trust. Its mission is simple: to transform our developments into sustainable community resources, providing affordable housing, business incubation, and economic opportunity." Timothy's face drains of color as understanding hits. "You can't. That's not. I'm your son." "Yes, you are, which is why I'm saving you from yourself." Eleanor's voice softens slightly. "The foundation structure is irreversible. No individual can ever seize control. No one can strip its assets or pervert its purpose. Not even me." The cameras catch Timothy's desperate glance toward Lucas Wright, but the corporate raider is already gone, along with several board members who've suddenly remembered pressing engagements. Your shares, your position, your authority, they're all tied to a company that no longer exists as you knew it. Eleanor sets down her speech notes. "I've given you something better than an inheritance, Timothy. I've given you a chance to earn back your integrity." He lunges for the podium, but James's team is faster. The footage shows them smoothly intercepting, protecting Eleanor from her son's last desperate gesture. Victoria finally rises, walking toward the exit without a backward glance. "Get your hands off me!" Timothy's shout echoes through the ballroom. "This is my company, my legacy. You can't just give it away." "But I already have." Eleanor's calm cuts through his rage. "The question is, what will you do now that you can't take what you never earned?" The cameras capture his collapse in perfect detail, the way his knees buckle, the hollow look as everything he'd planned evaporates. His perfectly tailored suit, chosen for his moment of triumph, now hangs on him like borrowed clothes. "Mrs. Richardson," Sarah approaches the podium, right on schedule. "The press release about the foundation is live. They're requesting immediate comments." Eleanor straightens her midnight blue dress, every inch the corporate leader she's always been. The cameras roll as she prepares to face the media, while behind her, security quietly escorts her broken son from the room. His last words, "You planned this all along," carry a weight he never intended. "Yes, Timothy," she whispers, too softly for the cameras to catch. "Because that's what you never understood about legacy. It's not about the ending. It's about every step that leads there." The morning newspapers blanket Eleanor's desk, their headlines competing for dramatic impact. The New York Times leads with dignity. "Richardson Empire transforms. Billionaire's surprise gift to city." The Wall Street Journal stays technical. "Revolutionary corporate restructuring sends shockwaves through real estate world." The Post, predictably, goes for blood. "Mother of all takedowns. Real estate queen outfoxes scheming son. Eleanor sips her morning coffee. Same time, same desk, same view of her city. While Margaret reviews the coverage. The media frenzy is exactly what they'd anticipated, though the public's response has exceeded even their careful predictions. The foundation announcement is drowning out everything else, Margaret notes, scrolling through her tablet. Timothy's attempted takeover barely rates mentions in most coverage. They're focused on the transformation angle. Corporate Titan redefines legacy seems to be the preferred narrative. A soft chime signals another email. Sarah's daily summary fills the screen. Dr. Harrison's practice issued a formal retraction of their competency concerns. The Harvard specialist has mysteriously lost all records of his consultation. Lucas Wright's office claims he was never involved in any Richardson dealings. 3 board members have submitted their resignations, effective immediately. Eleanor sets down her coffee, picking up the Times article. Her official statement stands out in crisp quotation marks. The Richardson Legacy Foundation represents not an ending, but an evolution. True power lies in transformation, not accumulation. In building up, not holding on. Victoria's divorce filing hit the courts this morning, Margaret adds quietly. Her statement distances her from Timothy's actions, claims she was manipulated. She's not asking for anything beyond her personal assets. The business channels run footage from the gala on continuous loop, Timothy's collapse playing out again and again in high definition. Eleanor mutes the television, turning instead to the stack of messages accumulating since last night. Congratulations, partnership offers, interview requests, and beneath them, a single handwritten note in familiar script. Mother, Timothy's. Letter begins. The paper bearing the letterhead of his private club. You've destroyed everything I worked for, everything I was meant to have. I hope your grand gesture was worth the price of your only son's future. No apology. No recognition. Just entitlement and anger, even now. A notification pops up. James's security team reporting Timothy's movements. He'd spent the night at his club, making calls until the small hours. 3 attempts to contact Lucas Wright, all rejected. 2 calls to offshore banks, presumably checking accounts he now knows are monitored. 1 long conversation with his private attorney, who'd subsequently withdrawn from representing him. The foundation board meets at noon, Margaret reminds her. Judge Carlton says the initial proposals are ready for review. Affordable housing projects, small business incubators, community development initiatives, everything you envisioned. Eleanor nods, scanning another headline. Richardson Foundation pledges $50 million to urban renewal. Below it, a smaller item catches her eye. Wright Industries stock plummets amid investigation rumors. Apparently, Lucas Wright's hasty exit from the gala had drawn unwanted attention to his other dealings. Sarah enters with fresh coffee and more updates. The Richardson Properties leadership team is assembled in the main conference room. They're anxious about the transition, but Margaret's presentation should settle them down. Oh, and Timothy's executive access has been revoked across all systems. His office is being cleared as we speak. The morning sun streams through Eleanor's windows, catching the frame of her 1975 business license. She's come full circle, in a way. Back then, she'd had nothing but determination and vision. Now, she's given away a fortune, but kept something far more valuable, the power to choose what really matters. There's something else, Margaret says carefully, sliding over her tablet. A video plays, security footage from Timothy's club. He sits alone at the bar, watching the morning news coverage, his posture radiating defeat. For a moment, he looks startlingly like Robert in his final days, after his last gambling losses came to light. Keep the security detail on him, Eleanor instructs. Not just for us, for him. She's seen that look before, knows its dangers. Another email arrives. The Foundation's first press release, ready for her approval. The language is perfect. Building on 47 years of Richardson excellence, we're transforming real estate. Development from a business of spaces into a mission of possibilities. Eleanor stands, moving to her window. Below, the city pulses with morning energy. Somewhere out there, Timothy is facing his first day without the future he'd assumed was his birthright. Somewhere out there, Victoria is starting over. And everywhere, people are talking about legacy in a new way. The newspapers rustle slightly in the air conditioning, their headlines already becoming yesterday's news. But the real story, the lesson about power, legacy, and consequence, is just beginning to unfold. The letter sits unopened on Eleanor's desk for 3 days. Timothy's handwriting on the envelope shows none of his usual confident flourishes. The strokes are uncertain, almost childlike in their hesitation. Finally, on a quiet Sunday morning, she breaks the seal. "Dear Mother, I've written this letter 17 times now." The others all began with explanations, justifications, carefully crafted arguments. But Victoria made me see that I've spent my entire life constructing perfect presentations instead of speaking truth. So let me try something new. I was wrong. Completely, catastrophically wrong. The past month has been educational. Every door that used to open at the Richardson name now stays firmly closed. My calls go unreturned. Former allies cross the street to avoid me. The humiliation isn't even the worst part. It's the recognition, hitting me in waves of exactly what I tried to do. To you, to everything you built, to your trust. I understand. Now why you had to stop me. I don't like it, but I understand. Eleanor pauses, taking a slow breath. Through her office windows, she can see the Foundation's first project taking shape. A former Richardson luxury development being transformed into mixed-income housing and community spaces. Timothy's signature had been on the original plans. Back when it was meant to be another monument to wealth, she continues reading. Victoria served me divorce papers yesterday. She was kind enough to warn me it was coming, kinder than I deserved. She said something that keeps echoing in my head. Your mother gave away an empire to save your soul, and you're still counting the dollars instead of the lessons. The therapist I'm seeing, yes, really, says I need to examine why I thought taking something was better than earning it. He's helping me understand patterns I never saw before. Dad's gambling, my constant need for more, the addiction to control that nearly destroyed everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned that yet. I'm not asking for my position back. I haven't earned that either. I'm just asking for time. Time to prove that your lessons about legacy finally got through, even if I learned them the hard way. Your son, if you'll still have me. Timothy Margaret finds Eleanor still holding the letter an hour later. He's been attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings, she reports quietly. James's team confirmed it. Following in Victoria's footsteps, she's been going to the family support group for weeks. Eleanor sets the letter beside the morning's Foundation updates. The contrast is stark. Timothy's raw confession next to reports of community impact, transformation, possibility. Has he tried contacting anyone else? Judge Carlton says Timothy came to his office. Didn't ask for anything, just apologized for putting him in a difficult position. The judge said he seemed different, humbled. The morning sun catches Eleanor's business license on the wall, that first step on a journey she never expected to lead here. And the Foundation work? The first community center opens next month. The small business incubator is oversubscribed. 3 more development projects are being converted to mixed-use spaces. Margaret pauses. Timothy's original. Designs were actually quite good. The foundations were solid. They just needed a different purpose. Eleanor allows herself a small smile at the metaphor. Like their architect? The Foundation board meets tomorrow, Margaret continues. They've received an unusual proposal, a request to create an entry-level position, something requiring hard work, long hours, direct community interaction. The applicant has a complicated history with the organization. Eleanor turns to the window, watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, her son is starting over from scratch, learning about consequences, responsibility, the true meaning of legacy. Doing the hard work he should have done years ago. The Foundation's mission statement, she says finally, talks about transformation, about second chances, about building something meaningful from whatever foundation exists. So you'll consider his application? Eleanor picks up Timothy's letter again, feeling its weight, physical and emotional. Schedule an interview, regular channels, no special treatment. If he's serious about earning his way back, he can start by convincing the board he's worth the risk. She pulls out a sheet of her personal stationery, the kind she uses for matters of true importance. Her response flows smoothly. Dear Timothy, your letter arrived at an interesting time. The foundation is reviewing candidates for an entry-level position. Long hours, modest pay, direct community involvement required. The kind of role that teaches the true value of what we build. If you're genuinely interested in earning back trust, this might be a place to start. No guarantees, no advantages, no shortcuts. Just an opportunity to prove that legacy isn't about what you're given, but what you choose to build. The choice, as always, is yours. Mother. The Richardson Legacy Foundation's first grant awards fill. A simple manila folder. 23 approvals that will reshape the city's landscape. Eleanor reviews them at her old desk, now relocated to the foundation's more modest offices. The top application bears a familiar name in the project lead. Field, Timothy Richardson, his title now reading Community Development Associate. 6 months have passed since the gala. 6 months of transformation, not just of buildings and balance sheets, but of relationships and perspectives. Eleanor studies her son's grant proposal, a detailed plan to convert an abandoned warehouse into a workforce development center, the same property she notes with appreciation where she'd made her first real estate deal decades ago. Timothy's team is waiting in the conference room, Sarah announces. Her role evolved, but her efficiency unchanged. The residence committee representatives are with them. They've made some interesting modifications to the original proposal. Eleanor gathers the folder, noting Timothy's handwriting in the margins. No longer bold strokes of authority, but careful. Notes about community needs, cost-effective solutions, sustainable impact. The man who once demanded a corner office now works from a shared desk in the projects division, learning the business again from the ground up. The budget revisions came in under target, Margaret adds, falling into step beside Eleanor. Timothy found ways to expand the training programs without increasing costs. He's been staying late, working directly with community leaders. The security team says he's usually the last one out of the building. They enter the conference room to find Timothy in animated discussion with Mrs. Chen. No relation to Margaret, but a longtime resident of the neighborhood where the workforce center will be built. His sleeves are rolled up, his trademark expensive. Suit replaced by business casual attire that shows actual wear. He's lost weight, gained color, shed the artificial polish that once defined him. Mother, he acknowledges her entrance with a respectful nod, no longer performing the role of dutiful son, but actually inhabiting it. Mrs. Chen had some brilliant suggestions about incorporating childcare facilities into the center. It would require restructuring the East Wing, but I think we can make it work within the existing framework. Eleanor takes her seat, studying the revised plans spread across the table. The original bones of Timothy's design remain, but they've evolved. Through genuine collaboration with the community they're meant to serve. Like the architect himself, they've found a better purpose. Walk us through the changes, she instructs, watching Timothy share credit with his team. Defer to resident expertise. Demonstrate the humility that no amount of corporate success had previously taught him. The presentation flows smoothly, not with the slick perfection of his former boardroom performances, but with authentic enthusiasm for the project's potential impact. When Mrs. Chen points out a potential issue with access routes, Timothy doesn't defend his design. He grabs a marker, starts sketching alternatives, eager to find a better solution. The Foundation's first annual report is ready for review. Margaret mentions during a brief break. She hands Eleanor another folder, this one filled with impact metrics and community feedback. The press is calling it a revolutionary approach to corporate philanthropy. The Harvard Business Review wants to do a case study. Eleanor pages through the report, finding satisfaction not in the glowing coverage, but in the real numbers. Affordable. Housing units created. Small businesses launched, jobs generated. The true measure of legacy, written in lives changed rather than profits earned. The grant award certificates wait in their presentation folders, ready to be distributed at tomorrow's community celebration. Timothy's is there among them, his project. Approved not because of his name but because of its merits. He doesn't know yet. The Foundation's blind review process means even Eleanor's son must earn every opportunity. "One more thing," Margaret murmurs as the meeting reconvenes. Victoria called. She and Timothy have been meeting with a counselor. Taking things slow, but there's progress. Eleanor watches Timothy guide the discussion back to practical details. Construction, timelines, community engagement strategies, sustainability metrics. He's learned to listen more than he speaks, to build consensus rather than demand compliance. The entitled heir who tried to seize control of her empire has been replaced by something far more valuable, a man who understands that true legacy is earned through service. The final grant approval form awaits her signature. Eleanor reads the project title again. Second Chance's Workforce Development Center. Timothy couldn't have known the significance of choosing that original warehouse property for his proposal, or maybe he did. Maybe that's exactly the point. She signs the approval, adding a personal note in the margins. The foundation is solid. Build something worthy of it. Tomorrow, when Timothy receives the grant award, he'll understand both meanings. For now, Eleanor lets him continue his presentation, watching her son discover that the most valuable inheritance isn't what you're given, it's what you learn to give back. The updated Richardson family trust document rests on Eleanor's desk, its final page awaiting her signature. 1 year to the day since the gala that transformed everything, this last piece of paperwork feels less like an ending than a new beginning. The trust no longer deals in property and power, but in principles and purpose. Through her office window, Eleanor watches Timothy leading a site tour at the nearly completed Workforce Development Center. He gestures enthusiastically, explaining the facility's features to a group of community partners. Victoria stands among them, her presence at these events no longer driven by obligation but genuine interest. Their reconciliation, like Timothy's, redemption has been earned slowly, thoughtfully, with professional help and hard-learned wisdom. The trust's new terms are elegantly simple. The Richardson legacy now measured not in dollars, but in impact. Future generations will inherit not control of assets, but responsibility to the Foundation's mission. Timothy had suggested the changes himself, understanding finally that true wealth lies in what you build for others. The board meeting starts. In 10 minutes, Margaret reminds her, entering with the Foundation's latest quarterly report. The numbers tell a story that balance sheets never could. Families housed, businesses launched, communities renewed. Timothy's Workforce Center, set to open next month, already has a waiting list for its training programs. Eleanor signs the trust document, her pen flowing smoothly across the page. Outside, the afternoon sun catches the Foundation's new logo. On the building across the street, a rising sun over a city skyline, light spreading outward. Below it, the words Timothy had suggested, building legacy through service. She gathers her papers for the board meeting, pausing to straighten the 1975 business license on her wall, a reminder that every ending holds the seeds of new beginnings. The empire she built hasn't been lost or destroyed, but transformed into something far more enduring than steel and glass. Timothy waits by the elevator, his father's old pocket watch now a symbol not of inherited authority, but of lessons learned in time. "Ready, Mother?" he asks, offering his arm with genuine warmth. Eleanor takes it, feeling the strength in their reconciliation. Together they step forward into the legacy they're still building. One brick, one life, one second chance at a time.